Hello, everybody. This is Soda,
And this is KLMeri.
and we are here with a new episode for you. And this week, we are going to discuss a topic that I think a lot of Trekkies have thought about, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably more
So,
than once.
probably, yeah. Especially if you've seen more than one show. Of course, we're going to discuss which crew would you join if you could?
So, yeah, which crew would you join? And we decided to get a little creative with the scenario. So, we're going to look at it from the vantage of if you were a new addition to the crew, or if you were replacing a character on the
Y-
crew,
yeah.
like their role, or kind of booting them out of the crew and taking over.
Yeah.
Yep.
So tell me, when you think about joining a crew, what's the most important thing for you?
That they're on a starship.
I get what
um,
you mean. I get what you mean.
yeah.
When I thought about like Deep Space Nine, I was like, well, I don't want to be like. First of all, it's not really a crew on Deep Space Nine because half of their people are like from the
Right.
Bajoran people thing. Um, and if yeah, also, like, would you want to live on Deep Space Nine, the former Cardassian space station?
Right. Yeah. My first thought was Deep Space Nine is out.
Yeah,
um, and when I think about joining a crew, to me it is how well we got a sense of family and loyalty from the crew,
yeah,
which maybe you could say builds for all of many of the crews that we see in Star Trek. That seems to be like a staple. But it's kind of, I think, necessary if I'm an addition to a crew
yeah,
that I want to be on a ship where, like, everybody loves the bridge officers. And to me, that is probably the Enterprise.
yeah. But also that kind of means that the Cerritos is kind of out, right?
Well, we'll talk about that. Put a pin in that.
Yeah.
Because let's
Well,
let's start with just being an addition to a crew. So you're not replacing anybody, but you're
yeah,
coming into kind of like an already established crew, and you have to
yeah.
figure out like where you fit in.
Yeah. Well, you said Enterprise, but we have seen like several versions of the Enterprise with different
We
crews. We
have.
have, yeah. We have like the original series and the next generation, and we have Enterprise, the series Star Trek Enterprise, and also now we have Strange New Worlds.
Yes, that
Yeah,
is absolutely correct.
those are four different crews, very different crews.
They are.
Yeah.
I immediately was like, chop chop, no Archer crew, goodbye.
Yeah, honestly, when I think about it, it's basically like joining. You talk about like family, but I think of it like joining also a workplace.
Yeah,
And you kind of have to think about like workplace conditions. Which is
that's
also
exactly
why,
it.
yeah, which is also why the original Enterprise, Star Trek Enterprise, went immediately out of the window because it was very it was like the most submarine like conditions, right? Like the most Spartan of all the ships.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really was. There's not a whole lot of crew.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean there was the
I'm just saying, like you're right on the money with that one, Soda. It is a workplace, and do you know if there is a decent set of leadership
yeah.
on that ship? Is where I'm going, and people you would probably feel comfortable working with, or at least you respect them enough that you think you could be a coworker.
Yeah. Well, I think I could understand people who would want to be there if you're like
Hmm.
very adventurous because they are like the frontier. They're just
Yeah,
like really exploring for the first time. deep space.
Yeah.
Um, so I can get why some people might gravitate specifically toward them, but like if I'm thinking for myself, as a workplace, I would like better workplace conditions. Yeah,
And better amenities.
yeah, exactly.
More advanced ship seems, a little more like an actual like decent place to work.
Yeah,
Um, but it also really depends on what role you want to take on, and who you would be interacting with because of that. So
yeah.
I was sitting there thinking, my first question was, do I want an existing role or do I want a new role?
No, just because you also immediately, like you said, in Enterprise, so you also immediately discounted
Yeah.
Voyager.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Here's the thing. I didn't decide on the ship first, actually. I decided on the role that I wanted, and then I thought about like what enterprise made sense.
mm, I get it. Is it? Did you discount it also because of the leadership with Voyager? Because, or is it just like the concept
um,
of like being in the Delta Quadrant stuck
the
with?
Delta Quadrant was totally
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
too risk adverse.
yeah. I get
Um,
it. I get it.
so it was definitely that. And then when you think about some of the other scenarios you could be in, okay, let's talk about, okay, so like Discovery, right?
Yeah.
When they start out, they're in the middle of a war. I don't know. I was just sitting there thinking, it just makes sense that it's the Enterprise, but I really wasn't decided on what Enterprise I wanted other than Archers.
Yeah.
I didn't want
Um.
Archers.
Yeah, when I
So,
think of Discovery, like there is also the point of, like I said, I don't
mhm.
like the Spartan condition, so I'm not going to choose like one of
Yeah,
the older ones. But also, like you said, the crew is like, like feels like a family. The Discovery crew, I'm speaking more to the later seasons.
yeah.
They do feel like a family, but I think out of all the Star Trek shows, aside from maybe Voyager, I feel like they feel too close to one another. They feel like too much of a tight knit group that you would have like a problem
Integrating
adjusting.
into.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe I got from them. Unless you like you got in very early on, like a certain character there that I won't spoil for you because I know you haven't gotten there yet. But yeah,
Yeah.
they feel too tight knit. They've been through too much together, and it doesn't feel like they really let newcomers in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Enterprise is like the most well-known ship, like you said, the most versions,
yeah,
and I guess really the most suitable to just like take on a new addition to the crew that could probably moderately integrate and work happily on that ship,
yeah.
barring whatever, trouble they get into. A
Mm-hmm.
decent work life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So you're landed on an Enterprise as well.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So
Definitely.
we're both going to be joining the Enterprise, some Enterprise in some role.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay. I can walk you through my thought process on
Yeah. Please do.
what I wanted to be. When we say like Trekkies have probably considered if they had got to join a crew, like what would it be and who would they be? I realized, at least for me, I had never put enough thought into it until we decided to do this as like a thought exercise.
Yeah.
And so, as I started writing things down, obviously the first thing I decided is I actually want like a new role. Okay, it's likely going to be a new role, um, but like in an existing capacity or existing department. And I started thinking about the different tracks. So I got really granular into it. Like, let me go by department or by track and think about whether that's like a hard no or a maybe, or a likely. And so as I started going through it, and then I was like, wait a minute, okay, I'm tossing out a bunch of things here. What is it that I like to do versus what would I just never want to have to do?
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
when it's like you're applying for a job,
Yeah.
and you're going to go for the job that looks good and suits your interest and your skill sets. Like, what is your appetite for the level of risk? What is your appetite for potential career advancement? All that stuff, right?
Yeah.
um, I started going down the list, and then I actually had to include some more departments as I started thinking about, like, wait a minute, on this particular ship, they had this department. So I'm just going to run down a list real quick, and don't laugh too much. But my first one was, okay, command track.
Hmm.
So you're going to be like a leader on the ship, and I put maybe.
Yeah.
Science was depends.
You can
I
see
love
that.
science, but I'm not
I can see that.
knowledgeable enough. Also, they deal with a lot of weird stuff.
That's true. But I think you can say that about every role to an extent.
True, given the situations they get into. But then I'm
Yeah.
just thinking about like your normal job description. um, Handling frontier science is not for me. Probably engineering and ops. No. Security. No, thank you. Medical. Uh, Really, this was just a big like screaming emoji, like as in body parts and operations and all things related to the body make
Yeah.
me feel a little icky. So no, thank you. Administrative, I went very likely. um, and communications was a question mark.
Hmm.
And then I went, oh wait, there's probably a weapons and defense, and I
Yeah.
stuck that with security
Yeah. That seems very likely.
as a no, thank you. It's way too much risk.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, what are things that really turn me off? um, Being really social, doing a mountain of paperwork, having to counsel anybody, having to clean up other people's messes, anything that's really like high pressure, high stakes would probably give me a stroke. Um, However, the things that I do like are I like data. I like dealing with data sets. I like problem solving. I'm very nosy. I love the gardens. I love foods. I love the kitchen. I wouldn't mind research, and I don't mind just trying to improve a process.
Mm.
Now, those things could fall in a bunch of different departments, but I was like, so I'm probably going to end up somewhere in an administrative role. Even I might even be in like maybe in an operational role, but from the perspective of somebody who just is like a project manager. um,
Interesting.
yeah, and probably communications would not fit me if I had to do what Uhura does. If that's the way we're thinking about communications, I'm out because I'm not able to communicate well, and um, I definitely don't have tact
Mm.
when I need it. So that also struck off like a liaison officer. That's a big
Mm.
yikes to me because of the social element and the having to deal with probably other races that might not be friendly to the Federation. Sounds like a big no thank you, also.
I see.
So I'm going to stop here.
Mm.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I went about it in a kind of a different way. As
So what
we
did
just
you do?
as we discussed at first, I thought to myself where I would like to be, as in not in the which capacity, but like physically where, because
Mm-hmm.
certain jobs come with certain territories. Like if you're in engineering, you would spend most of the time in the engine room
Bowels of the
and
ship.
in the bowels of the
Yeah.
ship, exactly. And climbing into conduits and fixing things, and like that's not as much for me.
Hmm.
And if you're in the medical field, you would spend most of your time in sick bay. We know Bones likes to pop into the bridge all the time, but he's kind of an outlier.
Right.
um yeah, most other medics kind of keep to the sick bay, and I also don't want to get stuck like there. Personally, I would want to be on the bridge where everything happens you know um
Hmm. Okay.
so I was thinking to myself, okay, so I want to be on the bridge, and what kind of job would I like to do on the bridge? And that's basically where I went from. And because, like we said, we're not discussing addition to the crew, I can't take an existing job of the main characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of posed more of a challenge.
That's interesting because I think I didn't once consider that I wanted to be on the bridge. I kind of
Mm,
knew I didn't. I
mm,
don't really want to be front and center where everything's happening, and especially in a, like I said, a high pressure, high stakes situation. But I don't obviously want to be in the guts of the ship messing with things that I probably couldn't handle. And I don't want to be in anybody's literal guts. So,
yeah.
um, I don't mind having, like, not having a specific part of the ship that I'm always in. I don't mind moving around.
Mm.
So I don't mind a job that would require me to visit other departments.
I don't think I would mind that either. Honestly, if I had to be like, but my thoughts was like, engineers are like kind of both engineers and medics kind of also work like basically around the clock, right? Because something always
Yeah.
goes wrong with the engine, or
Yep.
something always goes wrong with the people on the ship. So you always need to be on call. And also, I'm not very technically minded, so engineering is
Hmm.
is really not for me. Um, like you said, like botany, I would love to be in the ship's whatever it is called, arboretum.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that could be
Arbitorium.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
that could be nice, for example.
I really thought about that hard, Soda, because I love gardening so much. I love plants. I find them peaceful. And then I realized, I'm probably not the best person to be put in charge of those things, even if I love them. And it might actually take away from some of my enjoyment of just being among them.
hmm, that
So
might
I'm
be true.
like, I would visit the gardens as much as I love it. And it's the same goes for the kitchen, right?
Yeah,
I love to cook. I love to eat. But do I want to prepare food for a ship of people, or on a special occasion if they're not using replicators? Probably not.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, aside from like Voyager and the
Yeah.
original Enterprise, they really don't have cooks so much.
Yeah, but I'm thinking like somebody, helping make a state dinner because you
Yeah,
got some
maybe.
really important people on the ship. I'm just thinking from a practical, like, okay, but then do you want to be part of that group that kind of has to go out and, like, the lower decks? I put that on here. Do I
Mm.
really want to be like a lower decker doing some grunt work and cleaning up other people's stuff? No. So that was actually my next thought, was what level did I want to be on?
Yeah.
So did I want to be a senior? Nope. Do I want to be like a lieutenant commander? Maybe a lieutenant? That's probably about right, but not really lower decker. Definitely not a cadet. I was trying to figure out the nuances of, like, what's my level of seniority? What's my skill set worth to a crew?
Yeah.
In order to figure out what kind of role would be probably a fit for me.
Yeah. I mean, I treat it as a fun, as a thought exercise, for fun. Because
Yeah.
if we had to transport to the utopian Star Trek future, I would probably not be anywhere near Starfleet. I would be chilling on some nice planet, enjoying the utopia.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I would probably not be anywhere near Starfleet. But because we're having a fun exercise, then yeah, I would be. If I want to be on, if I'm already going to be on a starship, I would want to be like in the center of things. I want to be know what's going on, so I would want to be on the bridge.
I do also like knowing what's going on, but I just could not endure the stress of being
I
in the
can see
thick of
that.
it, probably.
Yeah, I can see that.
So, what else? What else went into your thought process?
Oh, well, after that, as I said, I thought about where I want to be and which ship I want to be
Hmm.
on, and like because which amenities and which accommodations I would like the most, and also and then I thought to myself, um, yeah, like you said, which skills I can bring to the table, and also what
Right.
interests me, because you know
Hmm.
I wouldn't want to be stuck doing something that I know for sure I wouldn't be able to do. So like I said, engineering immediately off the table, and science would be like I would be okay with certain kinds of science. Like I said, biology and botany are kind of interesting, but like physics is not for me. So I kind of felt like a senior science officer would probably not be my field, especially because physics,
Hmm.
includes astronomy, and that's like a big thing on a starship. Yeah.
Astrophysics is probably like the number one skill you got to have to be out there on a
Yeah,
spaceship.
in the science fields, obviously. Um, and yeah, so I was thinking to myself, what are my interests? And I do like languages, so communications did seem
Hmm.
like a promising kind of direction. And I also thought to myself that if I had to learn a skill, a futuristic skill, piloting also seems like really interesting thing to do.
That's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah, or navigating. Yeah, those two could be really interesting to do.
Yeah, I did think about that. And then I also thought, well, piloting is good, but often you see like the pilot and or the navigator having to do some type of defense maneuvers and or sometimes they combine them with like weapons.
Yeah.
So that piece of it made me feel well, I didn't want to be on the bridge anyway, but that's also too high stress.
Yeah. Well, I feel like maybe firing weapons in space wouldn't be so bad because it's in space. If you miss the target, you're not like you usually don't hit like anything important. You just shoot off into space.
But also, if you don't hit the target, you give them an opportunity to strike back.
Well, yeah, but that's part
So
of
yeah,
like every mistake
yeah,
you make on the bridge in a stressful situation is kind of like your life depends
yeah,
on it, kind of.
exactly.
Yeah.
So you like communications. You could learn a skill like piloting. Is there anything else that you thought of? What about like sitting in the captain's seat?
Oh, I didn't want to be the captain. Like that is too much stretch. That is entirely too much stretch. And like that's also I would include like the first officer's role in this, because the first officer, aside from like captaining the ship, he's like in charge of the entire crew basically.
Right.
So that's even more stress. I don't want to be in charge of the entire crew.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Um, that level of seniority and responsibility is just, yeah,
Yeah,
a little too much.
exactly.
Also, because then you have to deal with all the bureaucracy that comes with it.
Yeah, yeah. He deals with a lot of bureaucracy. I feel like he's like the crew's like every time anybody on the crew has like a problem with the accommodations or anything, they come to the first officer, right? Like,
Right.
yeah, he's completely in charge of the crew's day-to-day lives.
Right.
That's too much. I don't want to deal with the crew that much.
Yep.
Yeah. And there are other roles we haven't really discussed, which are like, I guess it depends more on the kind of ship, but if we're like on a ship like the Enterprise D, the Next Generation's Enterprise, you also have, I guess you can say they're not really part of the crew, but you have people who are like teachers for the kids because there are families on the ship, or
Yeah.
other things of that sort, because again, there are civilians on the ship. So you
Right.
have like people like Guinan, or maybe like a bartender, like
Mm-hmm.
she's a
Yeah.
bartender, or waiters in the bar, or things like that.
I did. Yeah, I did think about that.
Yeah.
Hey, do you want to be the bartender on the ship and listen to everybody's problems informally? But no, I would
No,
probably
I
just
would not want to be Guinan. Yeah.
no. I
No.
would be like, why are you talking to me? Go talk to an actual like
Y-
counselor.
yeah. Exactly.
Also, I can't mix drinks to save my life, so oh well. Particularly in a role where you have to do a lot of customer service,
yeah.
um, it can be tough because there's a lot of people on a starship
Yeah.
and a mix of a lot of different personalities, so it could be more trouble than it's worth
Quite possibly. Yeah.
if you're having a constant influx of different officers coming into your area and having to deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I even thought like, hey, what if somebody got smart and put like an actual human resources officer on the ship?
Yeah. I mean.
I was like, oh, definitely not. That would probably be the worst job ever. I
Absolutely.
would rather go
Absolutely.
clean the ship than have to listen to people point the finger at each other because somebody raised their voice at somebody else or
Yeah.
gosh
Absolutely.
no.
Absolutely. I mean, if with multicultural, like multi-species crews, like the amount of culture, intercultural transgressions you'll come across.
Exactly. This is why I
Yeah,
headcanon they have no HR on those ships because they can't get people to do it, to do
yeah,
that work on a ship because it's too much for one or even a small team of people to handle. You would be
yeah,
constantly soothing like stopping confrontations and doing a bunch of and then having to do paperwork afterwards and or have to get the seniors involved if like disputes or allegations or things like really heat up. I just can't imagine. It's like herding cats.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that would be miserable. So I landed on, and I'm just spitballing here because, again, I don't know what could be like an official position on a starship like Enterprise, but I would probably want to be either like a records officer
Mm-hmm.
or some kind of assistant, like ops officer.
Mm.
So, as you said, the
Interesting.
first officer is probably he's the first officer is essentially the operations manager of the ship. But there's got to be people lower than that, right? There has to be others who help because everybody in their department would be managing their department.
I actually, yeah, I think like Data's official title was Chief of Operations.
Chief of operations, right? So there is
Yeah.
that potential role, but nobody would want to take like the head position where you had to make all those decisions. I would not mind being someone who worked at a lesser capacity, like an assistant or the associate manager or something like that. You know what I'm saying? The person who
Yeah.
has to keep things organized and running smoothly and or keep the records sounds like something I could do.
Interesting. Yeah.
I like keeping things organized, but I don't necessarily want to organize people.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the timeline, but like I'm thinking if we like the computer is seems to be like advanced enough that you don't need someone to keep it,
Yeah,
like the records.
yeah,
The computer kind of does it on its own.
yep. So, and also you could say that like the computer would probably be doing the scheduling and everything else.
Yeah.
But probably one thing we've learned is that someone has to be able to ensure the computer's doing those things in a capacity that
Yeah.
can be executed.
Yeah,
So
probably.
anyway, I feel like whether it's making sure everybody gets their schedules or keeps their schedules, or it's making sure nobody went in and tampered with the records in the computer, I don't know. Give me some type of work like that and I would be fine doing that. So I landed
Interesting.
with some type of operations officer, but not the kind that needs to be on the bridge and not the kind that needs to be like an engineering operations, right?
Yeah.
um, General operations of the ship. We'll leave it at that.
Nice. Nice. Okay, and which ship would you be on?
So this is the one where I'm thinking, okay, who seems like less of a hot mess, um, but also probably welcoming and has leadership that I would be, I would really respect.
Yeah.
Wow. I landed on Christopher Pike's
Oh,
Enterprise.
interesting.
It seems like there's a good mix of leaders there. I think everybody there is probably has at least enough respect for Christopher Pike as a captain that the chain of command would not be like a tight knit type of environment you might see, like you were saying, kind of something you would see like on a Discovery, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, that's probably the Enterprise I would be on.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not to downplay the other Enterprises. I mean, obviously I love the original series Enterprise. I don't know. They just encounter so many problems.
Yeah. I completely
um,
understand that.
and then the next generation, to be honest, I have mixed feelings about the various senior leadership. And I kind of like the crew that Pike has. I like who his first officer is, who the security officer is. You know, they've got
Yeah.
an up and coming cadet in communications. I mean,
Yeah.
but you know, Spock's on there still, so what's the problem?
What? Yeah.
Also, the big win for me is like Christopher Pike is an advocate of family meals. Even if I was never be invited to one, I love a person who believes in food as a love language.
I think everyone on the ship gets invited to at least one meal with Pike.
Well, then that would be something to look forward to
Yeah.
as part of integrating on the ship.
Yeah.
So it was definitely Christopher Pike's Enterprise.
Nice. Okay, I can see the thought process here. Yeah, very nice. Yeah,
I'm
I actually
so
went.
interested. What did you pick?
Yeah, I actually went with Enterprise D, the next generation. As far
Mm,
as leadership goes, I think I don't like Picard, or Picard is like as a person. I don't think we would get along, but I don't need to get
hmm
along with him. And I think he's a pretty good boss, all things considered. He's very professional. In general, I kind of like the professional kind of environment on the ship. Like they
hmm
seem friendly, but they're not like super close clawing like we have to be buddy buddy family over here.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're like they're work friends, and they're good work friends, but they're work friends.
and you don't
And
have
I
to see him after work.
exactly, and I kind of like that, like
Yeah.
personally for myself, not to watch on the show necessarily, but I like it for myself. I think that's a good work environment. Also, I think it has the best conditions out of any ship we see in any show. It is basically a luxury cruise liner, yeah. It's
I
huge.
mean,
It
it
has
is. You're so
everything.
right.
Yeah, it has the best accommodations. It has like a bar and like a gym and basically everything you could want. And it doesn't have like a set like 5-year mission in deep space away from home. They're basically kind of like going around the Alpha Quadrant, right? So I think work environment wise, they have the best conditions. So I thought to myself, obviously, I'm gonna go there. Um, yeah. And as far as work goes, like I said, I like learning languages, but I feel like if I don't want to be the communications officer because, like you said, the work actually requires like talking a lot and dealing with other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
I,
Yeah.
I I like more like the aspect of learning, but learning the language would probably get me stuck in a lab all day long, not on the bridge. So I was kind of stuck with either navigation or piloting, and honestly, I think I could do navigation. I could learn to navigate. I think maybe I don't know. I don't know what navigating in the starship actually requires, but it looks interesting. It's less stressful than the actual piloting, I think. Um, and yeah, that's what I would want to do.
I I think those are all very valid reasons. I mean, you were correct in that Enterprise D is like has the most amenities.
Yeah,
You even have a holo deck for entertainment. I mean,
several holodecks, so you don't have to
several
stand in line.
holodecks, and so basically it's like a little city
Yeah,
in space. Definitely, that would be a nice environment to work in.
yeah.
So we both landed in Enterprise.
Well, yeah. I mean, I actually, I like that we both came up with very different answers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's pretty fun. I think I put more thought into this piece being like in a new role in addition to the crew than probably I did when I got to replacing a character.
exactly. I mean, when I thought about replacing a character, actually, that is kind of the place where I was really stuck because when I think about replacing the character, I think about like for the most part the characters kind of balance each other out, and if there is a character that I kind of want, I would kind of like to not be there, that I could see the crew moving on without. I wouldn't really want
Mm-hmm.
to be in their place. Like I would very easily want to see like and Voyager without Neelix or Chakotay, but I wouldn't want to be on Voyager as the cook or the first officer. Um, yeah,
I'm very much feeling you on this thought process.
yeah. Um, so you kind of have to think about a character that you could see like the you could replace, but also kind of balance it. So you have to find like a character that you could like take on the responsibilities and also its role in the crew, personality wise.
You're just gonna yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking. Also, I also approached it from the perspective of is there someone like doing a job that I could just do so much better? Or, if that we like you said, replace this person, I would have equal chances of being as good or better fit.
Yeah,
Like you said, not to offset the balance,
yeah,
but also not to put myself in a position where I'm doing something that I would just could not accomplish. I do not want to become that incompetent communications officer or that incompetent like navigator, right?
exactly.
I mean, I guess you could assume like you have all the training you need. I mean,
Yeah,
it's your imagination coming into play here, but um so I really thought like yes, we're doing an existing role. I think now it's more so about which ship could I shake up a little bit such that if I could just slide right in there and boot out some character, it probably wouldn't make or break the ship.
yeah.
You want to know which ship I picked?
I do want to know. Yes.
Uh, the only ship that I felt I probably wouldn't like destroy the fragile ecosystem there would be the Cerritos.
I can see that. I can see that.
So that one was a very easy pick for the ship for me
Yeah.
on this particular, like, if we're replacing a character. I'm like, okay, the Cerritos is second class starship, basically.
Yeah.
It's not the flagship. There are a lot of people there who are junior, definitely some seniors, but like, it's a ship where you could be like mid-career
Yeah.
before you move on to another ship to move up in your career. Or you could be very junior, you could be in the lower decks literally and be working your way up. So having someone like myself who may not be the best at whatever job I'm infiltrating um probably would not make as much a dent in the Cerritos because again, they don't get like the super important missions.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Who would you replace?
This is where I was like, oh geez, okay, let's go through the list of people that just either don't need their role or maybe I could bring a little sanity to the role. The obvious one to me was Counselor Miglimo
I can see that. Yeah.
because they need a better one.
Obviously, yeah.
And I said I don't like counseling, but I could do that job better. I'm just telling you right now.
Yeah.
The advice that Miglimo gives to people, whatever. Give me
Yeah.
a couple of courses in, psychology, and I'll go with it.
Yeah.
Especially if it's going to be about like dealing with the ensigns, right, or the junior lieutenants, and trying to build them up
Yeah.
to go forth and pursue their interest and be more ambitious. I can do that. I can pep talk people, even if I don't like dealing with people. So, Meeklebo, you are not good at your job.
Yeah.
And I could easily boot you and be in that position. Um, then I started thinking, okay, there's some positions that I just like I would not touch. So I started by like a process of elimination too. I did like I would not be Shax
Yeah.
like in that role. He's way too good at what he's doing. And obviously has a passion for violence. Um, so no, not that one. Definitely not going to be the captain of the ship. I in no way want to be the first officer. No, thank you. Um,
Yeah.
and then I was like, wait a minute, who's the science officer? Who's the science officer on the Cerritos?
I'm not sure actually.
I'm not sure either. So I put like, oh, this is a potential position because there probably is a science officer. We just never met them.
Hmm.
Because I can't imagine the Cerritos would not have one
True.
being in space.
Yeah. There is also, well,
And
you haven't seen the latest season, but okay, yeah. Let's go on.
okay. And obviously there is like science department, right? Because we see
Oh, yeah.
Tendi like is in medical, but then we see like there's the potential to be in science. So someone has to be the head of the science department.
Yeah, Talene is in the science department. She's not medical.
Yeah, right. And then no, I meant Tendi was in medical, but then
Yeah, yeah.
Talin was
Talene
switched
did,
over.
yeah, but Talene didn't join the medical, but she's still
Yeah,
wearing
yeah.
blue. She is in science.
Yeah, exactly. We know there's some science officer there. So I put like mystery science officer. And then I thought, okay, well then engineering's headed up by Billups. Billups is like so passionate about what he does. Like who could take that away from him?
Yeah.
He'd have to go back to be royalty. It would be terrible. And there's one other one. I'm trying to remember. Who am I missing, Soda?
Um, the bald guy who's constantly fawning over Ransom, who's like the captain's assistant, like
Yes, that guy.
that guy.
Um, I was like, I could do that guy's job.
Yeah.
Basically, the person who was the others that we saw on the bridge that we like didn't really get their names for, other than the one that was kind of obsessed with Ransom.
Yeah.
And I was like, that guy is too obsessed with Ransom. He doesn't need to be on the ship.
So true.
I
So
didn't
true.
write him down as the ball guy. That's why I didn't. I was like, wait, who is this person? So I can replace Meaglimo, Mystery Science Officer, and that's right, Ransom Obsessee. Would be I could do any of those jobs. Come on, it's the Cerritos. Probably less so the science. I'd actually have to go to school for that. But there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Yeah, when I thought about who I could replace, I really did think about like characters that are like completely kind of useless. Like I said, Nilix and Chakotay from Voyager, Travis
Yeah.
Mayweather from Enterprise. Like,
Yep.
does anybody know anything about him? Does anybody talk to him? No. Um, yeah. So those are kind of Diana Troy from the Next Generation.
Yep.
Characters just
Ironically, also a counselor.
ironically also a counselor. They're there, but also they're kind of useless, right?
Hmm.
Like they do their jobs supposedly, but if you remove them from the crew, the dynamic wouldn't suffer too much. I kind of exclude Diana Troy for that because for all that she kind of sits on the bridge and says she's sensing something, and when it comes to crew dynamics, she does add something like personality wise.
Hmm.
So I can't replace her. Um, and then you have like I said, I could probably do Travis's job because like I said, he's a pilot and stuff, but I don't want to be on the Enterprise and the first Enterprise. That's like it's too
No.
much. It's too much. Um so I was kind of left with Voyager, and I wouldn't want to be like stuck in the Delta Quadrant not knowing when I'll be back home, but it is technically just 7 years, I guess. Um all in all, like the father were going to be there for hundreds of years, but it turns out just 7 years. Um and it is like it still has like most of the amenities that the Enterprise D has because it is a modern ship,
Hmm.
and you do have to suffer Neelix's cooking, but otherwise it's like it's fine. It seems fine. And because it's in the Delta Quadrant and it's not a regular ship, you don't have to like deal with like new personnel coming in. So I thought to myself, I could probably do Chakotay's job. Probably.
I I agree with you on that one.
Because
You could
Chakotay does
do that job.
nothing. Chakotay does nothing and he adds nothing to the crew, and you could replace him with a cardboard and it would still be the same show. Um
Oh wow.
y-
That's great.
yeah. Um just I mean he doesn't have to train. He kind of had to like kind of tell the Maquis guys what to do at first, and then they were just kind of like doing it, and that was it. He didn't have to deal with like new cadets. He didn't have to deal with like new people. He basically
Hmm.
just kind of had to be there. I could do that. Probably.
Yeah. Uh, so we both approached it from we didn't really want to mess up the dynamics on these ships.
Yeah.
That is very nice of us
Yeah.
because you could approach this from the perspective of love this role and I just want to be a captain of the ship, and you know what? Picard doesn't need to be sitting on that chair anyway.
True.
I'm there.
True.
I'm running
True.
the ship.
True.
So good on us for, I guess, trying to be somewhat sensitive to the actual competent officers on the different ships. I did make one comment in my during my analysis, and that was my first thought was if I was just replacing a character in not on a starship, but just kind of in the Star Trek franchise, I could replace
Mhm.
any admiral. Come on, any admiral.
That's true. That's true.
You know what? I'll just sit in Starfleet Command and I'll call people up and make their day hell. And I'll just be like, I'm right because I'm the admiral and I have, seniority over you. So go do what I said, Kirk.
Yeah,
I could
probably.
do that.
Yeah.
Definitely wouldn't want to be some type of like ambassador because those people have a hard job. Like, once again, that whole liaison type role, it would not be for me. But I could definitely sit in like the big boss's chair and make stupid decisions.
Yeah, probably.
um, so at the end of the day, it ended up circling between these three, like Miglimo, because honestly, he's useless
He is useless. He is so,
and
so
he's
useless.
incompetent.
Yeah. I mean, I thought about Ransom too, but then, he just has too much to do, and I don't want to do all of that.
Oh
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like from a character wise, it's like, do you like they could do better with Ransom not on the ship, but at the same time, like nobody wants to be first officer.
Yeah.
As you said, it's way too much responsibility,
Yeah.
too much
And
work.
and ironically, as I said, because Voyager is stuck in deep space, the responsibility is kind of lessened for the the first
Yeah.
officer.
And that's the same thought I had. That's the similar thought I had for the Cerritos. I'm like, look, they're barely in danger. They usually just get the secondhand experiences. They like do the meet and greets, unless
Yeah.
they're off getting involved in some kind of conspiracy theory
Yeah.
or enemy, like devious enemy plan. Their actual responsibilities are pretty tame
Yeah.
for Starfleet. And Miglimo does not be giving anybody advice. Just
Yeah,
putting that
that's
out
true.
there.
That's true.
Okay.
Brace yourself for the fifth season. There is a Miglimo focused episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So we were talking about Lower Decks, the new season that's out this year. Soda and I do promise we will be reviewing that in another episode.
Yeah, when it's done, yeah, just the penultimate
Yeah.
episode just aired. The last episode of the show is airing next week.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. Well, we'll talk about it when we get there. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It is always sad when an excellent show is doing its last season run.
yeah. But it's sadder when it got significantly less airtime than any other show. Maybe
Well,
except for
that
the
too, of
original,
course.
animated series. But
Yeah. Soda and I have talked through our scenarios, getting to be on a starship. Obviously, the Enterprise is pretty good. One of them.
yeah, one
One
of
of
them.
them's pretty good. I'd
Probably
say if
not
you
the
pick
original
between
one.
between Pike, Kirk, and Picard's ship, you could have a pretty decent career on one of
Yeah,
those.
yeah,
Kirk's is the most volatile in my mind. Like, we never saw them do anything but get into trouble and
yeah.
have people die.
Well, like I said, aside from the original one, the Archer one,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah. Kirk's is like if you wanna really get the like frontier experience, but like with like an actual competent senior crew.
Yep. We would love to hear from the listeners if you guys have any particular roles or you would want to be in, ships you'd want to be on, or any characters, actual characters you might want to replace, whether for their incompetence or not.
Yeah,
Just because you might want to be closer to another character.
that's also true. I mean, the internet is full of YN stories, and
Yeah. I
yeah,
want to be a nurse on that ship so I can be close to McCoy.
exactly,
Just look at his baby blue eyes all day.
exactly.
Yep. All right. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll be back in the new year with a new podcast.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Bye bye.